Oh, I'm on. Okay.
You're official now.
I'm official. So today we are going to be mounting up a flying pintail. This bird was extremely fat, very fat bird. So the actual body size is normal pintail size, but it just had a lot of fat and it really expanded on me while I was fleshing it. So I guess our job to do is to actually do what I call skin and feather compression to try and get that skin back down to its natural size. A lot of people will put a larger body in it. I typically don't. Just try and make that skin really nice. Now if you're going to choose a competition bird, of course make sure that there's no pin feathers in the bird. Make sure that it is no broken wing bones, no legs. Just make sure it's a perfect specimen. Now when it comes to the amount of fat that's on a bird, I think what makes the nicest competition piece is having a bird that doesn't have a whole lot of fat on it, okay? If you choose that fat bird, you're gonna have problems like what we're gonna have today, just an overexpansive amount of skin. So I'm gonna explain to you what I did. I leave my secondaries attached to the bone. They are all attached. It's going to take you many attempts to do this before you're not putting holes in the wing. I like to keep it attached because there's no guessing. When you set that wing, when you set that elbow, you know exactly where when you mount up the bird, you'll know exactly if you have one wing too far back, one elbow that needs to come out, so on and so forth. I run the wire down into the ulna. So what I do is I'll take my Dremel tool. You will see that there is like a little bump on the edge of that ulna. I'll take my Dremel tool, grind that down, and then I'll take a small little drill bit and drill a hole in it. While that bird is in the wash, I'll take a pipe cleaner and clean all that bone marrow out while it's in the water, and just keep going back and forth, flushing all that bone marrow out. Same thing with the leg bone. I'll keep the ball left on there. Same thing with my wing bone. I'll go ahead and leave the ball on, and I will go ahead and start wiring up a wing. Both wings. How about that?
Did you introduce yourself then?
Oh, by the way, I'm Corey Carruthers. Wildlife Illusions is my business name, and we are here at the Iowa Taxidermy Convention. For all you Facebook followers. So what I did is I ran that wire down into the ulna, all the way down to the tip on the 16 gauge. I'm going to bend the wire to the shape of the bone.
Corey, what are you using to wash the birds with?
Dawn.
Dawn?
Just regular Dawn.
You want to repeat the question?
The question was, what do I use to wash my birds? And I just use regular Dawn.
And what kind of bird are you working on today?
A pintail drake.
Is that the only degreaser you use? You use another degreaser?
When I get done washing the bird, I'll throw the bird in some Coleman fuel.
Coleman?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I'll let that bird soak in there for anywhere from 15 minutes to overnight. Typically in the shop, what we do is I'll have Desiree wash the bird and throw it in the gas, and then in the morning she'll come back and start drying the bird. By the way, this is my wife Desiree, everyone.
Leave it in the grass overnight?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Just make sure that it stays like 60 degrees or colder. So I wrapped twine around the wire and the bone. When I come up to the tip here, you can kind of see how my wire wants to move a little bit. In order to lock that in, I'll take my twine, wrap it around that wire, Now there's like a little indentation on the humerus bone. I'll go around that once, twice, loop it again, lock it into place, lock it into place again, and that's that. I'm going to build a little bit of muscle structure. This is a carcass cast of a flying bird. Now you can see on this, if you look right at that angle, you notice that the muscle tissue is actually laying behind the bone. On the right and left side, you can kind of see where the bone is at, and all that behind there is all muscle tissue. So when I wrap that with tissue right there, and also take notice of the muscle structure on the leg. I'm going to wrap that muscle structure just like that. Mike, if you want to hand that out, pass it around.
When you fleshed out the inner wing, did you tube it down or did you make an incision from the outside?
I didn't make an incision, just to tube it. The question was, you might want to repeat the questions. If I tube skin my wing or make an incision. And I tube skin my wings. All right. I just have a little bit of muscle structure behind that bone. Going to do the same thing with the other wing. And I always leave cotton in my wing while the bird is being dried. So that way it sucks up any moisture that's inside the wing. So it dries faster.
Do you separate your secondaries or leave them attached?
I leave them attached. That way there's no guessing game.
When you're drying the feathers, is there anything you pay attention to as far as direction? Or are you just going, for lack of a better term, helter-skelter, just making sure you get it all dry, or you go from tail to head, or?
The question was, is what direction do I start drying? And it really doesn't matter what direction you're drying. How I do it in my shop is, so you're not drying the inside of the skin out. As I'm blow drying it, I have that seam down. And I also have a wet paper towel inside to lock in that moisture inside the bird. As soon as you lose that natural moisture in the bird and try and squirt it back down, you're going to lose the natural flexibility of that skin, okay? And also, the quicker you guys get at mounting birds, the better your birds are going to look, because you don't have that time that's drying that skin.
At what point do you borax?
I borax my birds right before I put them in the tumbler. Then after I pull them out of the tumbler, then I'll take a brush and brush all the sawdust off.
So is that another reason why you put cotton down in the wings to keep the sawdust and stuff from getting down in there?
Correct. That's another thing, but just so that there's no moisture that's inside the wing. If you have like a little hole that's inside your wing, all that natural moisture is going to start trying to seep out of a hole, and your feathers will never look the same if that happens. So that's
How do you repair pellet holes?
depends on how big they are. The question was, how do I repair pellet holes? And I said, depends on how big they are. If they're large, or this one, I had to. If you guys want to come up and take a look at the skin to see how I clean my birds, please do. You can overflesh a bird and you can underflesh a bird. Can you guys still see the connective tissue membrane in between each of the feather quills? Okay. If there's no connective tissue membrane, like this piece right here, that's overfleshed. There's still a little bit of connective tissue right there, but that little spot right there, that's definitely overfleshed. If you guys have that continuously throughout your entire bird, the bird skin itself has no memory of where it needs to go back. Okay? So there's a fine line between having an overfleshed bird and an underfleshed bird. Want to make sure that all the oil is out, but you don't want to get it to a point where it's over clean. Okay?
What kind of wheel do you use for flushing?
A lot of times I'll take a coarse wheel to the bird first and get all the membrane knocked down, and then I'll go ahead and go back with a soft wheel after I wash
So where
or
do you
rinse
get
it
your
off.
soft wheel at? You like Matuska's or some other place? Or?
Honestly, I can't remember where I got it. I've had it forever. So I do not know.
The course wheel though was Home Depot.
But yeah, the coarse wheel was Home Depot. That's what you learned on. That's what you learned on.
What gauge is that wire?
16.
16.
Yeah, 16 gauge. So I cut this wire, and there's kind of a really sharp little edge. I'm going to take some sandpaper or my Dremel tool and knock that off really quick.
Well, while you're hooking up your drama tool, we have a question here from Derek Church, and he wants to know, do you do all kinds of taxidermy?
Just birds now. I used to do fish. I used to do about 300 fish a year. And now I'm just a bird guy. So, and that's okay with me. But I do love painting fish, and that's one part that I do miss. I can spend hours and days painting a fish. And that was my problem. That's why I didn't make any money out of it.
So what do you use to paint them with? Do you use airbrush or do you use brush it on or scale by scale?
Airbrush, primarily just all airbrushing. All the fine little scale tipping I'll do with a paintbrush. All right. Going to find that little sweet spot in the leg. It's really hard to describe where it's at, but once you find it, you'll always get it.
You ever cut the legs off?
I do. Every now and then I do cut them off and inject the feet separately. I do that a lot on white fronts and snow geese.
Have those been injected before right now, or do you
These?
use them later?
These are, I'll inject these later. Now for you guys at home and here, I ran the wire all the way to the tip of the toe, all the way to the last joint. And I'll take a little piece of cotton, lay that in between the bone and the wire, and start wrapping. Having this cotton in between the wire and the bone when I inject it, well, first of all, when I inject it, I'll tie it off at the base here, at the scales, with my twine. So that'll help prevent 90% of anything that goes up into the feather area. That doesn't happen. But this cotton that I laid in between the bone and the wire will help absorb any injection fluid. And we also have this new injection fluid at Matuska's. Last week I tried it while I was up there. Very impressed at how it flowed into the webbing of the feet. It's set up really nice. I'm very happy with it.
What kind was it?
was just gonna say, don't ask us
Master's blend?
to
or-
repeat it.
No,
No,
it's-
it's not Master's Blend.
They just came out with the last week.
I think,
um,
isn't it Master's Blend that's having a production issue right now?
Yeah, they're having a production issue, so
So
that's
it's
why we
hard to
came up
get.
with our own. I was like, well, we gotta get something going. So,
We'll find that out.
foot
for you.
injection plastic, how about that?
Close.
Something like that. What's that?
How quick does it set up?
It's very similar to Master's Blend. Maybe just a hair quicker, just a hair.
So you think it flows into the webbing and heat stuff better?
It
Less
just,
pressure to put
yeah,
it in?
just about the same, I would say.
You can cool it down and it works slower.
Yep, you can put it in the freezer, it'll refrigerate it. I put mine in the freezer and you get probably the double amount of time.
Well, while you're wrapping, Nathan Erickson wants to know if you have any advice for a guy going from just turkeys and Euro mounts to full-blown taxidermy.
It's a good one. Any advice? Study the anatomy of the birds. Study the carcass. A lot of us get in this horrible regimen of taking a bird body out of a box and just start mounting up on it. The best thing I can recommend is do your own casting. Play around with the carcass, see what it's doing, especially a fresh carcass one that's just been freshly killed. That is probably one of the best things that I can do. Pretty much what can make or break a bird is your fleshing and your washing and drying. Those are the basic things that people really miss out on. If you don't do those things properly and you try to mount a bird or mammals or fish or anything, you're going to have problems. So it's those basic things that you have to really focus on.
So when you're doing a cast, how do you keep distortion down to a minimum? Do you freeze it and then do it?
Yep, I do.
What do you use to cast with, just regular silicone RV or?
You can use a silicone, yeah. That's what I use. It gets very expensive. I ordered in the 5-gallon buckets. It gets really expensive. So I do have to say, when you do a carcass cast, make sure after you shoot the bird, put that bird in the exact position that you want it to be, so when a rigor mortis sets in, all the muscle structure is right where it needs to be, okay? And then go ahead and skin out your bird. If you try and start bending muscle tissue, as you can see on this bird, right here, you can see that tear. That's because that leg was not set thoroughly in position that I want. Now on this side, it was done okay, it was properly done. So after you shoot the bird, get it set up the way you want it, freeze it how you want it, and then make your carcass cast. Because after you, say you guys had a carcass that was, or a bird that was frozen, and you want to take that bird out and carcass cast it, you know, thought all that muscle structure is mush. It's all gone. The bird doesn't have all the shapes and contours that it would naturally have while the bird's still alive. And a lot of times people will cut off the wing, okay, and cut off the legs and then carcass cast it. All your muscle structure is gone when you carcass cast that bird. So make sure that the wings are left on it, just like this, and the legs are on it. Then you have to carve everything down. Carve the wings down, carve the legs down. And that was one of my big secrets. You guys know.
So you wouldn't have as much success taking a bird out of the freezer that's been shot and then trying to do that with it?
Yeah, after it's thawed, all that muscle tissue just
You
goes
have
to
freeze
mush.
it again, or would that even still not do it?
Wouldn't do it. Wouldn't do it. Has to be fresh. Has to be that day within a couple hours. I know when I went through a phase of carcass casting a lot, I'm like, son, we gotta go home. I gotta do these birds. No, the birds are hot. They're coming in. Like, we gotta go.
So is there any specific way that when you put it in the freezer that makes it better or worse for casting? Like do you like put a loop in around where the neck is, where neck would be, and then hang it, or I mean, if you lay
Now I'm really
flat-
telling my secrets. I run a wire through the vertebrae in the neck. And that goes all the way down, and then I put it on a 2x4 and carcass cast it that way.
Corey, what's your secret for like freezer birds? Yes, right.
Throw them away.
That's what I'm wondering. They're hard.
Throw them away.
Yeah.
Paige Nether, the question was, what do I do for freezer burn skins? And there's really not much you can do for them. Just throw them away. Paige Nethercutt was telling me that he was using Chemo 4 on salt dried skins and freezer burn skins. I yet have to try it, so we'll have to give it a shot on. Let's see, my son's first bird that he shot when he was 7. He's almost 19 now. I still haven't mounted it. That's a bad dad right there.
Real bad, Dad.
What's that?
That's a real bad dad.
It is real bad, Dad. Okay, so while you're wrapping your legs, do not make your legs overbuilt, especially towards the scale line of the foot. The reason for that is if you can't get the skin turned all the way upside or right side out and that skin all the way up, what's going to happen is it's going to create a lot of problems for you, especially when it comes to taxing the back skin. Say if I was to put this in the body and that was too big, what's going to happen? All that skin's going to come down. You're going to have problems with your back skin being too tight up against the body. So if you see how that just slides up? Now you're going to have all this skin right here that's free floating. Typically I have a squirt bottle with water and I squirt the cotton down to help keep that moist. But we'll try and make this fast and keep it moving.
Getting back to your freeze-dried question.
Freezer burn?
Freeze-dried, freezer burn. Peter Rorm says Chemo 4 does work on freezer burn to some degree, but it's not foolproof.
Darn. I was hoping it would be foolproof.
Larry Wiggins, what is your method for wings on larger birds like swans, skinning, flushing, etc.? Thanks.
You would have to ask that question. I hate swans. On a swan, Canada goose, snow geese, turkeys, I will make it underneath the wing incision. It's the only way to get it thoroughly cleaned, and especially down into the metacarpal. I'll make an incision down the metacarpal, get that all cleaned out, fleshed, make sure there's no pockets of fat in there. But as far as the wings go for a flying bird, I would do the exact same thing that I just did here, as far as the wiring goes. All right. This is where I need my glasses and my lights. Time to start scraping away some of the paint. Where I'm going to glue it. If you don't scrape it away, the glue will not stick. So we're going to do that all the way around. But I'm also going to teach you something that I do on a competition. So I technically don't have to do that because I'm going to use some epoxy sculpt. I did not do this on the widgeon, but I will show you guys here. I will apply epoxy sculpt around the bill. So that way there is a very smooth transition from the beak or bill to the feathers. And this will also help to adhere the skin. So a long time ago when I was doing fish, I learned how to do a lot of fancy sculpting work. I used to do 300 a year, like I said, and I learned with epoxy, always mix your epoxy up fairly dry with hardly any water at all. And you can achieve great detail when you're doing your epoxy work. And also letting your epoxy set up a little bit before you do all the epoxy, or before you start doing all the detail work, works out great.
Larry says he has a 6 foot 10 inch wingspan sawn to tackle next week, so thanks for your help. And then
Good luck.
Also, hi from Italy from Andrea, so you guys are being
Hey.
joined from Italy.
Thanks for watching. See, is Jeremy watching from Malta?
I have not seen
Come on,
the
Jeremy,
from
where you
Malta
at?
yet.
Do you have any special prep to the plastic before you put the paint on?
Base coat sealer. I use all Lifetone products, and I just spray base coat sealer before I start painting. Check out these glasses. With light, without, with.
Kirby also says hello from Chino Valley, Arizona.
Arizona, sweet.
And Lebanon from Christian.
Lebanon, the country?
I'm gonna guess.
Or Lebanon, Missouri?
He didn't clarify. Christian, if
All
you're
right.
listening, are you in the country or are you in Lebanon, Missouri? Let us know. Everybody from Iowa, say hello.
Hello.
Say hello. I asked earlier where everyone was from, and strangely, they're all from the same place, and they all drove together. Derek Harriman says hello from SLC, Utah, Salt Lake City.
Hi, Derek.
Is that epoxy dry when you super glue that on there then, or?
It just takes
set
the
it right in that instead of the super glue?
I will use a little bit of super glue around the edge,
Okay.
just to glue it. Years ago, I just used the epoxy sculpt for an adhesive, and with Canada geese, anything that has a thicker skin, it sometimes will pull away.
Peter wants to know, do you Dremel a slot around the bill for deeper skin seating?
I do not. I do not. What I'm doing here is I'm building up just a little bit, there's still a ridge inside here, but I'm just,
Putting a glare so they can't really see, but
is it a glare
there you go. It's a little better.
without the light?
Yeah. With the light, there's a glare. Without,
Okay.
it's better.
Sorry.
It's Lebanon, Oregon, guys.
Oh, Lebanon, Oregon.
James Jenkins, what's up from Wilson, North Carolina? Love your stuff, man.
Thanks.
And we've got John from Montana, and Jessica from Stillwater, Minnesota, and Nathan from South Dakota.
Very good.
It's getting dry.
Yeah, skin is getting just a little dry. So we'll keep it moist. Okay. Now, for my customer work, I will typically use, after I get the head in, I'll caulk around the eye itself and use that as an adhesive so I can move my skin around with. For competition, I will use the B part of the epoxy only around the eye. And over time, part B will set up, so you don't have to worry about that. And I'm going to put just a real thin layer around the eye.
Tyler says, Eastern Shore, Maryland, love the epoxy tip. Gonna give it a try on my wood ducks.
There you go.
Kenny O'Hara,
Okay.
what do you use for your neck material?
This is the backer rod, or you can buy this at Matuska's foam neck material. And I'll carve it down. This was, I believe, when I first started, 1.5 inch thickness, and then I started carving it down with the scalpel blade. Carve it down so that it's always thicker in the back, and as it gets towards the front where the trachea is at, that will be thinner. And then after I get done carving, I'll take 60 grit sandpaper and sand it down to get rid of all the harsh edges. Now, to make my trachea blend in a little bit more, I put a little bit of silicone in that area, and I smooth it so that there's a nice transition from the head into the neck. Can you guys see that? Okay. And that is also the epoxy work around my eye. It's just a real thin layer. I'll try and do it on this side really quick.
Hey Nathan, once this video is finished, it will be published on the Matuska Taxidermy Facebook page, and it'll be in their video section where all the rest of their Facebook Live videos are. So you can catch the rest of this one there. Probably after 5:30 Central Standard Time.
Hopefully I'll be done by then.
Well, these guys will probably want to eat by then, right? What do you have
Probably.
going on tonight? What are the plans?
Seafood buffet.
Seafood buffet? You guys excited? No? Yeah?
How was the food here? Really good?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah? Okay.
You can get stuffed fat on that buffet. around
Can
the
ya?
corner.
Good desserts.
Too much, actually.
Good desserts?
Good pie.
So you do anything special with the eyelids? Like some of them use little epoxy clay to build up the eyelids, or like the string and Mod Podge, or
I don't do any string and Mod Podge. If I do a competition bird or wood ducks or white fronts, they'll have a really, of course, a thicker eyelid, and I'll use my epoxy. Again, when you roll it out, make sure that it's mixed up dry. There's that. Just a thin layer around the eye. And I know I need to come up with eyelids for wood ducks. It's been on the list for years.
like on that one there, I'm assuming that's like a customer. Is that a competition or a customer?
This is a customer bird.
So you do anything special on the eyelids on that, or?
No, I won't rebuild them.
Did anybody else want to take a closer look? Can I pass it? Not pass it?
I'm ready to glue.
Need it?
I'm ready to glue.
If you want to see it, come quick. He's gonna glue. Yeah, come on up. That's what you're here for. So.
What do you use to glue the foam neck material to the head?
You guys.
Hot
go
glue.
ahead.
Oh,
Hot glue.
Peter says, I hear the duck on the menu is a little freezer burn. Have them soak it in Kimmel 4. And you need to
No.
come out with eyelids for wood ducks.
I definitely do. I definitely do. All right.
nice.
Thank you.
This one is from Brent. He wants to know what makes a prettier mount, a standing or flying blue goose?
That is really up to the individual. Personally, I like to see blue geese standing. That's my personal preference. Just so you can see the scaps and the tertials. Those are really pretty on a blue goose.
How about you guys? What do you think?
Standing on as well.
Well, Brent, it seems like standing is the consensus of our group here this afternoon.
All right, now I'm gonna kind of round that out so I can get the neck down into the neck skin here.
I think you can swipe down. Try that out. Swipe down or to one of the sides, right or left. They might. You got it?
Perfect.
All right.
Good.
So if anyone watching is having issues with the comments, if you'd like those to go away, is it swiping to the left?
To the right.
Swipe to the right. Swipe right, guys. And I guess I better get back to focusing on what Corey's doing and not swiping right. Sorry about that.
No problem. Come on.
Randy from Skullmaster's Taxidermy is watching. So welcome, Randy.
Randy. There we go.
You know,
Nice.
that's not a bad idea. If you guys go to Matuska Taxidermy's Facebook page, and this is live, if you want to see what he's doing more up close on your phone, you'll be able to watch right along as well. So thanks for that.
I think the most important part of, well, let me back up. I always used to have the head or the neck attached to my body. That's how I was taught. That's how I learned how to do it. Kent Rady taught me how to do this many years ago, because the head and neck attachment is much more important than your neck and body attachment as far as getting everything correct. I wouldn't go back to that method. This is much more important.
Dunlap from West Virginia says hello. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, before I start gluing this down, I need to make sure that all my feathers are completely dry. And from putting trying to run the neck through the skin and get the head on, the feathers got a little damp, not much. So I'm gonna quickly blow dry this. This bird skin's going to be a little problematic just because it was so fat and fleshing it, the skin just wanted to explode on me. Okay. I'm going to take a little piece of paper towel. Keep my eyelids moist. I'm going to place this paper towel inside the head. Put it over the eye.
Did you write that down?
And now I'm going to wet it down. There we go.
Hey Kirby, the glasses Corey is wearing, he got those from Matuska Taxidermy with the lights.
They're awesome. Awesome.
Are they magnified?
Yes. And I just started using cheaters not too long ago. I think somebody was wearing off on me. Whoops. I lost my paper towel. Okay, so I'm going to run a bead of caulk on the back of the head. I'm going to start way back where my neck foam starts and kind of do a zigzag. Can you guys at Facebook see that?
But you're just putting a real thin bead so you don't have to worry about oozing out the ear hole.
Correct. Always use your caulking as an adhesive. Don't use it as a filler. So always think of it that way. If you apply too much, you're asking for a lot of trouble. Take a little bead of glue. Put that on my epoxy.
What kind of glue are you using there?
I believe it's the Sitka Medium. You can also purchase that at Matuska's. And you can,
like a syringe on the end of it?
well, you can also order these tips. They're really fine tips through Matuska's as well. These are a lifesaver. Love them.
Be a one-time thing, use it and throw it away.
Nope, you can keep using. That's one nice thing about this real thin tip. When you get done using it, always squeeze the bottle so you can get air into that tube. And then if it does seal up on you, just keep cutting it back until you can get that flow going again. And that works out really nice.
This question is from Kenny O'Hara. Will the caulking hold the feather profile on the crown of the head for a hooded merganser?
Again, yes, it will. If don't use that caulk as a filler, just use that more of as an adhesive. So that will definitely hold. The problem with any doing bird taxidermy, we always want that head to look nice, big, full, and fluffy, right? Especially on a hooded merganser or a wood duck. So we're taking this head and we're constantly going like this. Well, what's happening right behind the base of the eye? That skin is getting pulled up like so. If you place some caulk behind the eye and take that skin and place it down with a pin where that skin should be, and then pull the top, start pulling it down, your crest is going to look more wide. And as long as you get that where the skin where it should be, a lot of times if you notice when you're doing birds, you'll have that line, that infamous line that wants to go up. So taxi that skin down. I'm going to go back to gluing. I'm going to place a little bead of caulk on the lower jawline, just a little bit, and try not to get it on the feathers, and also in front of the eye.
John wants to know, do you glue the ear holes back to the artificial head?
I don't. I never do. I used to. Well, I shouldn't say never. I used to a long time ago, but I don't do that anymore. I just kind of take that ear hole and just kind of put it in place, and it's locked in. Not locked in permanently, but it's in the right area. So what I'm doing right now is I'm smashing that caulk around. That's in front of the eye and on the lower jaw. Just a little drop on the lower part of the lower mandible. Place that skin back to where it should be. If your feathers need to be groomed in that area, right now is the time to do it. Now I'm going to do the side of the head, on the upper mandible. Okay, now we'll do the other side. Again, caulk on the lower mandible, in front of the eye.
So this one's from Christian, asking, not quite here, cannot leave a natural beak that is not available in artificial. So asking, can you leave a natural beak if it's not available in artificial, or?
If you don't have an artificial head, you can use the real beak. Don't recommend it. You still can. We did taxidermy like that for a long, long time, but if you can get an artificial head, that's always the best way to go.
And why is that?
If you, the outer shell of the bill is really fleshy, and that shrinks down. The nasal passages, they'll shrink down, and it just looks like a dead bill, I guess, dead shriveled up bill. Now, if it was like a upland game bird, like your grouse, you can use a real head for your commercial birds. For competition, I would make an artificial head.
When you judge, as you approach a piece for the first time, what do you look for? What attracts you or distracts you?
I think everyone's going to kill me for saying this, especially nowadays. I just look at the overall body shape of the bird. I really don't care about the sceneries and all the foo-foo-ness. I just look at the bird. Look at the overall body shape of the bird, the head shape of the bird. If you are, for me, as a judge, when I go and look at the finer detail work, I always look at the eye. The eye is absolutely the essence of the mount. If the eye isn't done properly, then I kind of shy away from it. But as a judge, they got to make sure that the basics are there, the basic shapes of the bird, the contours of each feather group, making sure that they're there. That's primarily what I look at.
This one is from Jennifer. She wants to know, can you place an approximate amount of caulk you apply in the cheek and top of the head area on the black table next to something for size reference?
How about if I do this? Looks like I just bought this head. So you start at the back of the skull.
You want to turn your light off?
Oh, sorry. And I'll start doing a zigzag. Like so. And then when you smash the skin down, like so, smashing it down, it'll smooth that caulk out.
Mandy says, sold.
Sold. And then when I do the caulk on the side here, that's exactly what I do. Now later, I will place caulk behind the eye, like I said, in a zigzag form like that. So, that's what I'm doing. Okay? It's not a lot, just a little bit, just so that the skin has something to slide around on and to adhere to.
Oh, just leave it.
Just leave it?
Yeah. Would be a good reference for another time.
Okay. Now, on the bottom of the throat, I will place a decent amount in the lower throat area. And what I'm going to do with that later is I'm going to smash that down into the neck so that there's a nice smooth transition. right, now we'll move on. Move on to the body.
425 on time.
425 already? Okay. Sure you don't want a chair? All right. So I'm going to bend my neck down. A lot of times if you leave that straight and you try to run your body through it, through the bird, you can cinch this down and then still keep cranking and cranking, and then all of a sudden your neck gets shorter and shorter and shorter. So the reason why I bend it is so when I put this in, it's going to be locked in. The length will be locked in, I should say. And this bird will be in a jumping pose. I'm going to wrap a little bit of a crop on here. Not too much. I just want it to blend from the neck into the body. Build a little bit onto the sides of the neck.
Where did you cut it?
I ordered, I believe it was a bale of cotton through Van Dyke's years ago, and I'm still working on it. I think I have 3 garbage bags still full of cotton, so it goes a long way. All right, try and make that as smooth as possible. You can see that it's built up a little bit, okay? Not too much, not too big. And it's nice and smooth. Next is my support wire. Already pre-drilled my hole. Okay, so I'm measuring my body right here. I want enough to go through my body and bend over. So where my thumb is at, take the wire, bend it. Run it back through. If you have to cut a trough out, you sure can. It's helpful so that wire has someplace to go. only thing that sucks about thick wire. Lifting weights pays off. All right, remove my wet paper towel and we'll start wiring. So the big question is where do you insert your wires at? I want my bone to be uptight up against this ledge at the very front right here. My wire is on the back side of that bone, so I have to look at the distance of my bone thickness to where my wire is going. So I have to measure, let's see, right there's my bone. I have to go back a little bit and insert my wire. Same thing on the other side. As I was fleshing this bird yesterday, I realized, boy, this is a really, really long incision. My son must have skinned this one out. We were down in Oklahoma, and we were getting some excellent specimens. I'm like, I need help, young man. Can you start taking the bird bodies out? So he typically makes a longer incision. I usually make a shorter incision, but he doesn't have the experience yet to make a shorter incision, and I'd rather have him make a long incision than split off to the side. And now I'm going to do my legs.
So do any of you have a favorite bird you like to mount?
Your ducks. Wood
Wood
ducks?
Anybody else? Nobody else mounting birds in here? Just checking it out? I
don't-
like to mount
Yeah,
it.
any of them? Man, you just here for a social gathering or what?
Just here to hang out.
Yep.
You're all the strong and silent type. And
Think about quitting birds. You make it look easy.
Experience. It's a lot of experience. My wood duck numbers were down this year considerably.
well, I don't mount anything, but I really like the quail
You like,
when we have the chance to do those.
you like quail.
I like quail.
I brought that eyeball bird. It's in just.
Oh, seriously?
Under rock that I was sitting
Oh, yeah.
at. Don't judge the taxidermy work, just look at the footage.
Hey, I'll look at it. How long ago did you mount that up? A month ago or so? Yeah. Did it have pin feathers in it?
Side pockets, I don't know if the feathers were shot out of it or.
Oh, yeah?
It's missing about half on one side. Nice big crest on it, but he had some wind damage.
Was there?
And then his belly was starting to slip for some reason. I don't know if it dog slobber, if he didn't get it in the freezer right away or.
Probably in the freezer right away, want to show all his buddies. That happens a lot. Also, I've noticed that when people don't put their birds in the freezer right away, when you eject the feet, they'll bubble out on you.
Yeah.
Had that problem a lot.
James Jenkins says sprigs and cotton tops are by far his favorite to mount.
Yeah, mine too. We typically don't shoot them a lot up here, or when we do shoot them, it's usually early in the season.
Bill Zimmerman wants to know, how many ducks do you do in a year?
This year around 200. I'm not, I don't get in a huge amount of birds like some of the other guys that I know they're taking in 500-600 birds. It's just like, wow. It's a lot.
Larry O'Malley Jr. says wood ducks are the best bird to mount. So
You
he's with
think?
You. I would say they have the Hollywood hair of all the ducks.
That they do.
Jamie wants to know about how long does it take to do one bird?
If I'm on a roll, I can do 2 ducks a day, from skinning to mounting. But that's a long, for me, that's a long 12-hour, possibly 14-hour day.
Is that with or without your lovely assistant helping?
That might be with.
I'd like to try some exotic, bicolor teal or falsetto teal, something like
Yeah.
that. And work on a few South American birds.
Those South American birds are,
They're beautiful.
they're pretty, but man, they're just full of pin feathers. All of those tropical ducks.
I do think our stuff's pretty too. Grass is always greener.
Yeah, yeah. So what I did is I put caulk in the neck and crop area, and I also put some caulk in the scapular feather group. I think last time on that widgeon I did a pump and a half.
Corey, have you ever mounted mourning doves?
I tried.
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
What advice would you recommend?
Yeah.
What's that?
What advice would you recommend?
Trash can? No. Charge a lot for them.
Yeah.
One. Like quail, people underestimate the time just because they're so small, but for a duck I'm charging $3.95. For quail I'm at $300. Get paid. That's get paid, guys.
You still
Um,
wash them too, right?
Yep.
Even on a dove or?
Yep. They go through all the same process that any other bird would do.
So is it like a morning dove, they got like tissue paper skin on it?
That they do.
Feathers
Wet tissue paper.
just fall right out.
I've got one I was thinking about doing, but I may not do it now.
Yeah, they're.
May freeze dry.
Yeah. Hey, Corey, how many birds have you torn up in the bird flesher, and how do you remain composure?
Plenty, and I still do it.
Yeah.
Serious, I'm still ripping holes, and accidents happen.
Yeah.
It's one of those things you can't, well, you can try and stay away from, but it does happen. And Desiree started fleshing a little bit, and can we tell them the story?
Which story? Oh, what
So
the
she
heck?
was-
I
she-
don't know what story. to
She was
do. Go
fleshing a
for it.
turkey, and she was going over it and going over it and going over it, and she said, "Come over and take a look at it." And I looked at it, and looked like she didn't do anything to it. I'm like, add a little bit more pressure, and not buffing the skin. You gotta add a little bit more pressure to get that membrane off. So
Yeah, I was getting a little frustrated
she was.
because he would come over and be like, "Well, what did you do?" And I said, "All
This.
of it." What do you mean? I did all of it.
What's your setup for bird flesher on like a turkey or swan or a goose, big goose?
So I, as far as I'm sorry, this side needed a little bit more caulk than the other side. As far as the fleshing goes, I said earlier that I use a coarse wheel to get the membrane off, and then I'll go back in with a fine wheel and make sure that I get all the fat out of it. As far as horsepower, RPMs on my motor, I don't know right offhand what they are. it can yank a bird skin out of your hand. It's pretty good flesher. Pretty good power.
How many times do you usually end up washing them?
A total of 3 times. So I'll soap the skin down, then with a lot of soap. Then I'll go ahead and soap the outside of the feathers really well with soap, with Dawn. And I'll go back in and, well, you want to explain the process?
That's all right. I came to see you.
So I have a sink full, or like a regular kitchen sink, okay? Put the bird in there, continuously squeezing the bird around, flushing all the fat and the blood out of the bird feathers and the skin itself. After I let it soak for about 10 more minutes, make sure that all the pellet holes are clear of blood clots. If you do have some stained feathers, I will go over that with a toothbrush and scrub it out. Then the bird will go into 2 to 3 rinses. Then I'll soap it up again. Same process, making sure that it's clean. Then I'll go ahead and rinse it out. Again, probably 3-4 more times. Wash it again. Rinse it probably 5 more times. So you're using a lot of water on your birds. A lot. And that's okay, the bird's got to be clean.
A comment from Ray Rustfall. He said, I wrap the feet in a wet paper towel and it seems to work well.
Yep,
Corey does too.
yep.
Dave West, do you ever remove the feet for mounting? And Dave, in some instances, he does. Once this video goes live into the Matuska Taxidermy video archive, you'll be able to watch the whole thing and catch the full comments on that, but he does remove the feet. Peter, do you always attach support wire before mounting, or is it dependent on the final position of the bird?
It does depend on the pose of the bird. Sometimes I'll, like if it's belly out, cup coming into the decoys, I'll go ahead and wire my neck, my wings, and I'll leave my legs alone. Then I'll start inserting the wire through the backside, and I'll loop it through just the way that I did here. Run through the body and back in again. If the bird is flying off to the side, I'll do my neck, my wings, and where, if this is going to be closest to the wall, I'll go ahead and insert this leg, wire it up, and then run my wire through, run it back through again, and so on and so forth, then wire my leg up. So it does matter.
All right, and one more quick one. Ray and Jamie, do you use kerosene to degrease, or is Dawn dish soap good enough? And the answer is both.
I do use the Coleman fuel, kerosene. I think it's kerosene. Is it? Or is that different? White gas. White gas. After the bird is washed.
You like that better than mineral spirits?
Yeah.
What's the advantage of it? Dries quicker, or?
Dries quicker, and mineral spirits is a little oily.
We do a dorsal incision.
I did a long time ago. Had a black scoter I did years ago, and I did a dorsal incision. Never did it again.
No, you go ahead.
For a competition bird, where we don't have any broken wings, broken legs, anything like that,
Uh-huh.
Would you use a game farm bird, or just pick the best of the hunt?
Pick the best of the hunt. You can't go with the game farm bird. Those birds will typically be extremely fat. So you have to always keep that in mind. But yeah, those birds are typically very, very, very fat.
So you're sewing that from the neck to the vent.
I know, I do it backwards.
Some of them do it from the vent to the neck. I can ask you if you have a preference of.
This is the way I was taught a long time ago when I was 10, back in the 80s. That's the way my dad and I always have done it. Then we were told we were doing it all wrong. So a lot of guys,
Well,
most of your,
How do you keep the feathers from wanting to, I mean, thought is if you saw them from the back to the front, that the feathers don't dive in as bad as the way you're doing it. But
by constantly brushing the skin back, that keeps the feathers from wanting to really go in. But yeah, I do this backwards. I wrap my legs and wings backwards. Just a backwards kind of guy.
So what you're saying though is it should be from the tail to
From
the
the
top,
From the tail to the top, yeah.
for the most part.
Yep.
Ashley, how do you keep the bird from becoming frozen solid? LOL. Silly question.
Frozen solid. I guess I don't understand that question.
you mean it's drying up too fast, or?
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know, Ashley, if you're still there and can give us a little clarification, that would be great. But we typically always have to follow our birds as they come out of the freezer
Yeah.
before any next steps.
Man, this bird skin is just expanding so much.
Ray says, does she mean the silicone from hardening? We're not sure, but thoughts on that?
I don't know.
When you're flying birds, you have a wire clear of the toe.
Mhm.
Standing birds, where does it exit the bottom of the foot?
I typically like to go, well, it depends on the driftwood where that foot is going to be meeting at. Typically, if you're going to go ahead and do just a standing bird like on a rock or something that's really smooth, or on a 2x4 until you get it to your next step, go ahead and run it out the pad, but don't run it out the front of the pad next to the toes, not the rear.
I say taxidermists must have the patience of the saints because you all are still hanging out. in
They're here.
June.
They're here.
And this has been a long haul.
Just getting started.
Yeah,
Being crazy helps.
it does. Now I'm down to my tail. I'm going to run a little beaded caulk. The base of the tail feathers.
He did do a long incision.
Did a really long incision.
What are you doing for stitch? Zigzag it back and forth?
Yeah. Yeah, just a baseball stitch.
What kind of thread are you using?
Good question. It's a thread through I got from Matuska's.
It's more than like a single cotton thread, like you sew up a
Yeah. Yep.
heavier.
Yep. right now is the time. I tie off the legs, my tourniquets, for my foot injection fluid. And typically when I do my seminars, I will do them with the feet already pre-injected just because of the odor issues. Usually hotels really don't like lacquer paints or lacquer thinner, solvents inside their premises. I guess I did that so quick I didn't even explain it.
Ray says, I bet that caulking sets up everything quicker and fills in any voids, huh?
It doesn't make it set up quicker. It actually makes it set up a little bit slower. It's acrylic caulk, so you have actually more working time with the bird skin. So, I'm sorry, what I did with this is I tied it on the inside, okay? And then I'm going to swing it back on the outside, tie it again, and tie it again. And that will stop most of your, majority of your foot injection fluid from seeping up. What was the question again?
I think you answered it. Does
Okay.
caulking set up things faster and fill in any voids?
It does fill in the voids. It does, it actually slows it down a little bit. Okay, if you have to dry any feathers, right now is the time to do it. That's along your seam. This guy's pretty darn dry, but I will quickly go over it. It's pretty well dry. All right. We'll get him on the piece of driftwood.
Craig wants to know, how much do you inject in each leg?
As far as the actual amount, I really don't know until it's completely full, until each, say I start off at this hind toe, inject it, the foot fluid, or the injection fluid will go up the toe and start to come out into the webbing. To help the webbing process along, I'll take my fingers and pinch it and squeeze that foot injection down into the webbing until it goes to the other side. But just keep on injecting until this area is nice and full. I will also inject along the outside edge, because this outside edge will always collapse on you. After that is full, then I'll start to go into the middle toe, inject that, and the outer, or the inside toe, and I'll inject that. Then I'll come back around to the hind toe, inject that, and the foot, or the fluid will start to come out towards the top, and just start injecting up along the way, all the way up to the ankle.
Ray says he's never injected feet, but he probably should. What are you using? So again,
The Matuska's injection plastic, foot injection plastic, I believe it's called.
What gauge needle? 20?
I think that's a 20. I should probably look at my syringe box. I get these at my vet's office, and they always tell me, or what do you want? I said, well, whatever you guys use in on everyday use, and that's what I do. I usually use a staple, but I ran out of staples, so we're gonna use screws. Lock this in. Okay. That is that. I need to step off to the side here and grab that stand. Whoa.
Hey Ray, the wire was hooked into the foam, and as soon as this video is finished, it will be live on Matuska Taxidermy's video vault, and you'll be able to watch the whole thing from there and see it from start to finish.
All right. Let me kind of go over this bird, try and get in the right position. I would choose for a customer mount.
So if a customer says it's up to your discretion to choose a pose, what do you typically defer to in trying to find something that's going to work best for their bird?
Like this pintail, the customer said, just do whatever makes the bird, look pretty for that specimen. Typically, I mean, I do like the flying banking to the side pose. We decided to go with the jumping pose for this bird, just something a little different. They're both shot by the same guy. This head really expanded on this guy. And the feather's a little wet. Make sure that they're dry before you set them into the epoxy.
This one is from Craig. He wants to know, what wire did you use on the wing and legs? Was it galvanized or annealed, and what gauge?
It was 16 gauge and annealed. Okay, so I'm going to open up my eye with the tweezers. Put some caulk back behind the eye, near the base of the skull, towards the neck, and do a little zigzag all the way up to the front.
Corey, if you get caulk on feathers, what's the trick of getting that out?
When you first realize it happens, typically the caulk isn't really smashed into the feathers. It's just kind of laying there on top. So just try and grab it as lightly as you can and try and lift it off the feathers. I've heard some people using borax to get it off of. I don't know if that works or not.
Ray wants to know, do you use this method in competition?
This method, yes, I do.
So is the reason you're gluing that now is because it's mounted so you wouldn't smoosh the caulking around the eyes as you're
Correct, yeah.
sewing the rest of it?
Yeah. See how those feathers and the skin wants to pop up on me? Maybe you guys can't see it in the back, but it's just wanting to lift up off the front of the skull. The skin does. So I'm gonna have to put some caulk in the front there. And I'm doing that just by feel. I can't see it. There we go. Now it's doing what I want it to. Okay, so on your eyelid, the front portion of the skin, it's not really technically up against that eyeball itself. It's actually pulled away from the eyeball, exposing the nictitating membrane. And that is typically in a point, and then as it goes back around the pupil, always trying to make sure that you have somewhat of an equal distance on the upper eyelid as you are on your lower eyelid. Sometimes in competition I'll see a bird eye and the skin is really pulled up high, but the lower eyelid's nice and relaxed. Just try to make sure that that is even. Again, study your reference when it comes to your eyelids. And typically, when a bird is flying, the eyelids are open a lot more than they are on a relaxed standing bird. So always keep that in mind, especially when you're doing a competition bird. I have what?
25 minutes.
25 minutes left, really? That's not enough time, is it?
This is from Jimmy. Did you put a small amount of cotton in the Adam's apple area? I missed the beginning.
No, there's caulk in there. No cotton whatsoever. I did put a little bit of silicone on the head and neck area just to blend it, but I did that yesterday, so the silicone had plenty of time to set up. bird is going to take a lot of grooming to make this look smooth. Just because it was so fat. I'm compressing that skin down. But I'm not going to get too carried away with it because I'm going to do a little bit of manhandling on it. I'm going to wire these wings up. Typically, I like to use an upholstery pin for setting the tail, but I forgot my pin box. So we're going to use the wire to pin it. Place that wire in the middle. Place that on top of the shelf. Start twisting that wire into the body. If you guys, to show you how fat that skin is, look how much that skin is just sagging. All this skin right here has to get pulled forward. When I pull that skin, all I did was pull that back skin up. Move that belly skin up. That tighten it up. I bet you guys were looking at that head going, pull that skin up, that looks ugly. All right, now we're going to wire the wings. Cut a little edge off, we'll sharpen the wire. And I'll make a zigzag like this. Make a little zigzag, like so. So when you're placing it into, or if I didn't do that, and placed it in there like so, it's moving.
Craft wants to know if you tumble your ducks.
I do on my customer birds, I do. Competition, I do not. See? It's not moving around on the inside. So when I lock that bird wire in, or the wing wire in, it's going to stay.
And Craig wants to know if this is 160 annealed in the wings also.
16 gauge.
Or 16 gauge.
Yep,
Oh,
16 gauge.
see, that is a G. See, I need my cheaters too.
You want the glasses?
16G.
Okay. By keeping your secondaries attached, I'm going to go off to the front here. Keeping your secondaries attached to the bone, you can kind of see how this tertial is longer than this one. If you keep those attached to the bone, you'll be able to see, well, I need to pull this elbow back just a little bit. Like so. Now they're dead on as far as the elbow. Now I have to worry about this angle as far as the radius and humors, or radius and ulna. Now when I place my wire,
Well, this is just not gonna work.
it's not going to work?
You're fine.
Okay. I'm going to place my wire, if you guys can see, right here towards the base of the secondaries, right here, like so. Typically, the biggest problem that I see on everyday customer mounts is that this elbow right here is pulled back so much, like so, and that makes the tail look really, really short. Pull that elbow out and away from the bird body, so that, keep in mind that the bird's wings are pretty much, if they're flying like this, they're right in the middle of the bird body, okay? A lot of times people will bring that elbow in, and all of a sudden they have this really long looking neck and hardly any tail. It's not where you're placing the wire on the bird, on the wings, on the body. It's just the actual elbow. I hope I explained that correctly, because I know I stumble a lot. So I place that wire in there, and what happens is the feathers will pull as you insert that wire, and I pull that skin out, those feathers out. Place the wing on top of the wire. Okay. Need my wing carding material. Shoot. I do need some pins. Would somebody run to Matuska's booth and see if they have any upholstery pins, please?
They've got some there and all that.
They do?
Yeah.
Jim Lawrence had some of them
If not,
for similar.
Did he?
yeah, one, on the other side does.
Any questions?
Other
No?
than the wires you just inserted, did you have any wires inside the wing?
The 16 gauge wires, annealed wires. They're attached. Well, guys can go back and watch the beginning of the video. The wire is inside of the ulna bone.
The wire inside stops at that end joint, right?
Yep. Or I'm sorry, right in here at
Yeah.
no, it does not. The wire itself is running through the ulna bone. It's actually inside the ulna bone.
Okay.
So there's no wire inside the metacarpal
Yeah.
area whatsoever.
That's what I meant.
Yep.
I think I missed that part.
Sweet. Thank you much.
You're welcome.
You know, I typically have this list that I go over, make sure that I have everything for my seminars. I forgot to go over the list.
You didn't have a lot of notice, did you?
Well, it doesn't matter. I should have gone over the list.
Wow.
Yeah.
So much for trying to make excuses.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you use caulk in the wings to keep the feathers flat, or did you leave them attached to the bone?
Say it again.
Did you use caulk in the wings to keep the feathers flat, or did you leave them attached to the bone?
The secondaries are attached to the bone. I did put caulk inside the scapular feather group area, just a little bit coming out onto the flight web, not much. Gotta see if this is fairly symmetrical. Kind of digging the top line.
Buy that wire at Home Depot.
I think you can buy it at Home Depot, but not in that size, that quantity. Of course, I bought it through Matuska's.
Ray said, good question. He was wondering the same thing.
Yeah. Matuska's carries these huge, that huge quantity of wire. Okay. And this plastic is their fin carding plastic, Matuska's fin carding plastic. I've used this stuff for years. So in order to find out where I want to go, I want to make sure that this edge of the secondaries is going to be along that leading edge. I don't want to place it too far forward because I will be constantly sliding those feathers back and forth inside the two sheets. Okay. Well, locate my spot with the pen. Were those at Matuska's booth, those pins, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you using a reference photo?
No, I'm not. Who asked that question?
That was right. But he thinks reference photos are very important.
Oh yeah, they are very important.
Just not today.
Yes, not today.
Or winging it, so to speak.
We are winging it.
Mounted so many, you don't need them anymore.
Yeah.
So Kev Williams says, interesting way of wiring the wings. Fantastic.
Ted Williams.
Kev.
Get.
Kev William. I think we're talking about two different people here.
Actually, this is a very, very, very old way of doing wings with the carding material. I used to use the tape. I like the tape, but this way I can, oops, I just did the wrong one. This way I can slide it around instead of having to tape, retape, tape, retape.
Sean, as far as washing and rinsing, we covered that earlier in the video, which will be available once it is finished. But long story short, wash 3 to 4 times. Dawn is Corey's soap of preference, and then rinse at least 3 times in between each wash.
Correct. So, here's another point where you have to use a reference, okay? All right. I'll show you guys some here in a little bit. I wish we had a big screen where we could put the reference up on the TV. So a lot of people have these spread out just like so and card them. See how that's kind of jagged? You want to pull all these secondaries down
Will your upper secondary coats follow? Can you do that?
Well, here's the upper ones. You have to constantly keep pulling those down. When a wing is fully extended like this, and actually when I go back to my reference and look at this wing, all these the tertials right here and the secondaries, those could have been actually pulled in a little bit furthermore. If you look at the, well, we'll go over the reference after we get done. But yeah, these secondaries could have been laid up underneath more. Now you're just laying down the job.
I am getting lazy.
So on these secondaries, typically on a bird wing that's like this, I will lock the wing in here with a paper clip. Then I will extend these, pull these feathers back, okay, back up here, so that way I can get my secondaries to pull in forward. A lot of people, this area right here will be pinched, but you actually have to pull the primaries back in order to get your secondaries to come up. Lock those in. You can pull these back just a little bit. A lot of times your tertials will be pulled in while your secondaries want to go straight back.
Can you repeat the material you're using again for carding?
Yeah, it's fin carding plastic. It's available on Tuskas. Sold in a long sheet, and you can cut it to whatever you want.
And do you ever curl the primary wing edges, and if so, what technique do you use?
I have an old curling iron that my mom used to own back in the 80s. It's felt wrapped, and you cannot find them anymore. But what I typically do is I'll start at the very base of the, let me walk around. I'll start at the very base of the feather and start heating it up. And then I'll continuously go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until I start feeling that start bending. And then I'll do the same thing as I pull it back, and I start to curl, start to curl, start to curl, so on and so forth, like so. Wish they made those felt curling irons. They don't scorch the feathers as much as a normal, regular curling iron does.
It's 5:30.
It's 5:30?
Yep.
Maybe 4:30 in Denver.
It's only 4:30 in Denver.
I would say if you have some place to get to, feel free, because I realize there are other activities going on, but Cora's gonna finish wrapping up here, and
I'm gonna keep going.
you're welcome to stay
gonna
if
keep
you
going.
like.
Have you ever tried to go on Amazon and find the felt curlers, iron curlers, or are they just a company just
I have not.
making them, or?
I have no idea. And no, I have not tried Amazon.
Feet injection plastic, is it as dangerous as the formal?
Formaldehyde?
Possibly.
I don't think so. I wouldn't inject it into myself, but I just. Formaldehyde's nasty stuff. Used to use formaldehyde a long time ago, and it just makes my nose burn. You gotta use the respirator. So I'm going to tape this. Start spreading them out just evenly. I should ask, is there another seminar that's going on in this room?
No.
Does anyone know? Okay.
Social hour.
Okay.
And they do have the seafood feed or whatever is going on.
Seafood buffet?
Seafood buffet. Brian Davis says, great idea to live stream this. Thanks for the many years of information.
You bet.
Oh. It would help if I were showing the right kind of bird. This is from Shane Shaw. Technique-wise, are there many differences in how you mount your birds?
Not really. Kind of when you get down to it, a bird is a bird. Each species does have their own characteristics. I've learned a lot from, like what I was telling you about a wood duck, as far as the crest goes, as far as getting that skin in the back, or notoriously widgeons, green-winged teal, mallards, you know, the green, all of a sudden you have this split in the back and it starts wanting to split on you. So what's going on with that? Typically, that probably was a fat bird, and the skin just kind of overblown a little bit. But typically, if you take that skin and start moving that skin forward, those feathers that are going like this will start to close in the back. So by pulling that skin forward, that will eliminate one problem.
Same thing for that like maroon patch on wood duck right behind its eye.
Yep, same thing. Let's talk about your shoulder placement and your flight web. So on your humerus bone, at the very edge near the ball, you'll have a sharp point. Okay? That flight web, you want to pull that flight web kind of back. Hold on a second, I gotta squeeze this caulk around. Making
When you
sure that's
spin your
even.
wing, you don't remove your secondaries, but when you spin in your flight web, do you remove the rubber band?
No, I don't. Squeeze this around. But yeah, that flight web is attached right at that very edge of that bone. And then your secondary or your scapular feather group will want to fan out just a little bit. And I can't see what I'm doing. It's hard to do a seminar and see what I'm doing without interrupting what you guys are seeing.
Ray Corey is putting the finishing touches on some one-on-one bird taxidermy classes, and when those details are ready, we'll be sure to share those.
We'll announce those on Facebook. Now, if this bird was for competition, I would totally dismantle the wing, pretty much. I would take it off right here at the mantle and the scapular feather group, all the way around, just making a circular cut. For the after that is off, I will make an incision along the upper covert area and the lower covert area, taking that totally off. So all you have left is the primaries and the secondaries along with the bone. That's all that you're going to see. Get those into a position that you guys want and let that dry. Then I will go ahead and rebuild. After that's dry, then I'll go ahead and start rebuilding all the muscle detail into the wing bone, into the humerus bone and the radius and ulna. Then I'll start, after that's done, with epoxy, with the epoxy sculpt. If it was like a Canada goose or something like that, I'd probably go ahead and use foam. To rebuild a flight web, I would go ahead and start using epoxy and building up epoxy for my flight web, or even thinner plastic than this. And you have to be really careful doing that. You'll have to constantly keep sanding that flight web to get it super paper thin, because all that technically is from skin to skin. You don't want to have that overbuilt, but you want to have all that muscle structure there. The best way to see the anatomy of a bird is to pluck it, to pluck that wing area out, to see how everything lays, where your feathers are, just all the muscle structure. This part up underneath here, where the connective tissue membrane, or where the flight web connects, I should say, actually curves under. There's a little strip of muscle right along that feather edge, right up here, and that skin will roll under just a little bit. So that's how I do my competition flying wings. I made one attempt at it back in 1996 doing it that way. I haven't done another one. But maybe one of these days I'll do it again. Who knows? Who knows? But now we'll just start taxing and preening. Let me see if I can find some reference photos here. If you guys want to come up and thumb through this, here's the widgeons right here, and you can actually see how tight those tertials want to come up. Okay, we'll show this on Facebook here. Look how tight those tertials want to angle in towards the body. So this one is technically wrong. Those tertials and secondaries should come up at more of an angle, just like this bird. And all of these are about the same, if you really want to get down to it. No. So a while ago, I had our youngest daughter go through and cut some reference photos out, and then we put the pintail photos in another book. So, I guess I don't have pintail reference.
That's all right. I think we're at a good spot to wrap her up.
Well, we can't, but there's a lot of preening that's going to
Printing
go on.
can go on for a long time.
But that's right, if you want to stand in the back there, you can kind of show the overall nose of the bird.
All right.
All right, I'll be here for a while preening. Try and get this guy wrapped up. But thank you all for coming, and thank you, Facebook people, appreciate it. We'll see you next time.